Tánaiste, I welcome the call by you and the Taoiseach on the banks to cut interest rates in line with the cut in ECB rates. But I think it's fair to say that words without actions don't do much for us. The hardship that will be caused by the bank's refusal to both domestic and business borrowers is absolutely scandalous. And it has also been brought to my attention recently that in terms of business borrowers, that the banks are using a small print clause in contracts where people borrowed at rates relating to the Euribor rates, that they're now changing and upping the rates to cost of fund rates reference, and that is putting severe extra costs in a small print clause on businesses. And can I ask you the following specific questions? Will emergency legislation be introduced in the House next week to give the regulator the power to force the banks to pass on the ECB reduction and also to honour rates given to business customers and accepted by them in good faith? The second question is, will the government replace forthwith all the public interest directors who are now not acting in the public interest? The third question is, will the government seek an immediate EGM of the guaranteed banks to remove the remainder of the directors? And the fourth question is, will the government inform the guaranteed banks that if they do not conform on this issue, that the cost of the guarantee will be increased next year by the amount that they are not passing on in terms of reduced rates due to the ECB reduction in interest rates? And will they inform the banks that this fund, this extra funding, will then be used to provide financial assistance to those in difficulty with mortgages or business loans due to the reckless policies of the banks? Will the Tánaiste and will the government instruct, particularly AIB, which is 94%, I understand, owned by the state, that all of the senior staff have to conform with public service norms in relation to salaries?
Thank you, Deputy.
I think it's time, Tánaiste, that the government walk the walk on this rather than just talk the talk. And I would appreciate if I could get specific answers to the very direct questions I've asked today, rather than the usual Labour revisionist history lessons that I seem to be treated to each week.
Right. Tánaiste, please. Order, please. Tánaiste. Start, please. Order, please. Please. Deputies. Tánaiste.
Well, when it comes to revisionism, there was a fair bit of revisionism, a fair bit of revisionism in the question. Fianna Fáil are hardly in any position to lecture this government about taking firm action with the banks. Let me deal.
Please, deputies.
Let me deal with the issue. First of all, I welcome the support from Deputy O'Keefe for the strong stand which the government has taken in relation to the decision by some of the financial institutions not to pass on the interest rate reduction to their customers. Yesterday, the government had already arranged a meeting with the Bank of Ireland, Ulster Bank and AIB to discuss with them the whole issue of lending to small and medium-sized businesses, which is an issue that has been of concern both to members of this House and to the government. We took the opportunity of that meeting directly between the Government's Economic Management Council and the banks. We took the opportunity of that meeting to raise with them their intentions with regard to the interest rate reduction. The three banks who attended the meeting yesterday told us that it was not their intention to pass on the reduction in the interest rate to their borrowers. We made it very clear to them what the government's view on this is, that the interest rate reduction that has been given by the ECB should be passed on. People who are on mortgages need to get that interest rate reduction. The reason that the ECB reduced the interest rates is not so that the banks can pocket it. It is so that it will be passed on to those who are borrowing money from the banks, and in order to release more money into the economy. And we made that position very clear to them. We also made it clear to them that in the event that they do not comply with that request, that the government will consider legislating appropriately. Following the meeting that we had with the banks, the Taoiseach made direct contact with the financial regulator and conveyed to him what the banks had told us, and again discussed with him what additional powers he might require in order to deal with this type of situation. We've asked the financial regulator to give us his assessment of that situation, and when we have that assessment from the financial regulator, the government will take whatever decisions are necessary to ensure that the customers of banks, that those who are borrowing from banks, are not treated in the manner that the banks have set out to us yesterday. Now, can I say this, that we expect to get the assessment from the regulator quite quickly. And in the meantime, I believe that the banks concerned should reconsider the position that they stated to us yesterday. The position of the government is very clear in relation to this. The interest rate should be passed on to the customers. That's what we believe the ECB intends. That's what the government wants them to do, and that's what I believe that members of this House and I think the general public would want them to do as well.
Deputy O'Keefe, 1 minute supplementary.
Could the Taoiseach confirm that irrespective of whatever advice they get from the regulator, that it is the intention of this government to ensure that these rate cuts are passed on to the customers and that they are backdated to the date that they came into force, and that whatever steps along the lines that I've outlined here today, legislation, removing directors and all of the other things, that whatever steps need to be taken, that they will be taken to ensure that, as you said quite rightly, this was done by the ECB to help the customer, not to help the banks. And the second question I would like to ask you, which you didn't address, is it your intention to instruct the state-owned bank that it cannot pay more than public service wage rates to people who are now in the public service?
Well, first of all, I can say that yes, it is the intention of the government that the interest rate reduction should be passed on to the customers, and we're going to take this one step at a time. We had the meeting yesterday, and as you said yourself, Deputy O'Keefe, this is about taking action. It's not about words. The government is acting on this. We had the meeting yesterday with the banks concerned. We told them what our objective is and what our intention is, and what we believe the ECB objective is, that this interest rate should be passed on to the customers. We have made it. Should be, of course. Well, that's step number 2. If the banks do not reconsider, the position that they expressed to us yesterday at the meeting of the Economic Management Council when they met with us, then on the basis of the assessment that we get from the financial regulator, we will take action as appropriate. Now, I don't want to get into. We made it clear yesterday to the banks that the government is contemplating legislation in this area. There is a period of time within which the banks can reflect on what we said to them yesterday, can reconsider the position that they have adopted. I hope that they will take the opportunity of doing that. If they don't, we will have the assessment from the financial regulator, and we will take action.
Margaret, no, Deputy Quavin O'Keefe on behalf of Sinn Féin. Deputy, 2 minutes.
Taoiseach, on the same issue. Last evening, your colleague in government, Minister of State Brian Hayes, described as pathetic the response of the bank executives to the government's request to pass on the recent ECB interest rate cut to all mortgage holders. Now, he's right, of course, but I have to say, Taoiseach, that the reality for most people watching all of this is that the word pathetic more properly applies to the fact that you, with the Taoiseach, the Minister for Finance and the Minister for Expenditure, Public Expenditure and Reform, were all in a room with representatives of AIB and Bank of Ireland that are, to all intents and purposes, in public ownership, and the Ulster Bank. And to your polite request, were told quite blankly no in relation to the passing on of this recent interest rate cut. Taoiseach, there is an absolute responsibility on the government to stand up to the banking institutions at this point in time. You have spoken in your reply to the last questioner of will consider legislation. This is what you've said. You say that you're waiting on an assessment from the financial regulator in relation to what he may deem appropriate at this moment in time. I have it to say, Taoiseach, that there is a requirement for you to be fully honest with this House and with the Irish people. Do you not already have an indication from the financial regulator and from the Governor of the Central Bank of what their assessment actually is, and that what we're waiting is just an unfolding enactment? The reality is that you know exactly where they stand on this matter, and with all the jumping up and down that you may be doing, the truth of it is that in the end of the day, irrespective of what the financial regulator may recommend, you're going to have to take the decision to confront the banks and to stand up in the interest of ordinary Irish mortgage holders and protect their interests going forward. I'm asking you, do you already have an indication of the position of the financial regulator and the Governor of the Central Bank on this matter? Have you already, with colleagues in Cabinet, made a decision either to proceed with legislation to compel, and may I say, because it isn't a voluntary act, these banks should not only be compelled in relation to this most recent interest rate cut, but for all interest rate cuts going into the future. Deputy. Will you come clean with the House on this matter?
Thank you very much. Taoiseach.
Well, can I assure Deputy O'Quillan that the Government has been very firm with the banks on this issue. You weren't at the meeting yesterday, Deputy O'Quillan. You portray it as some kind of a polite conversation. The Government was very clear with the banks about our wish and our determination that the interest rate reduction will be passed on to the customers. We made it very clear to them that if that does not happen, then the question of legislation is something that the Government will consider. We have asked the financial regulator for his assessment of what is required. I think you will agree that it is prudent to wait until we get that assessment from him and to base whatever decision we make in relation to legislation on his assessment. But let's be very clear about it. The Government is very determined in relation to this issue. The interest rate reduction, which has been announced by the ECB, has to be passed on to the customers. That was made very clear yesterday by the Government. We did it in very clear terms. Nobody leaving that room was in any ambiguity about the Government's intention and determination that mortgage holders, that those who are borrowing from the banks, should benefit from the reduction in the interest rate.
Thank you, Taoiseach. 1 minute, Deputy Quillan.
My question again to you is, do you have now an indication, orally or otherwise, of the view of the financial regulator and the Governor of the Central Bank in relation to this matter? Will their assessment, either now already known or to present in the coming days, be the final determinant as to whether or not this Government proceeds with legislation? Or will you act as the duly elected and accountable representatives of the Irish people in government, in the interest of the Irish people, irrespective of the position of the financial regulator and the Governor of the Central Bank, who may, for their own reasons, have a view that such legislation is not as they would wish to proceed? I'm saying to you that the only way that we can guarantee and protect the interest of the ordinary Irish people is for government to legislate to compel the banks, and not only in relation to the most recent cut, but as a matter of course, and continuing into the future.
Thank you, Deputy.
Taoiseach, will you give an assurance to the House that the Government, the Cabinet and the Ministers named to engage with those bank representatives yesterday will act in the interest of the Irish people in the first instance and not be deflected from that declared intent by any other side interest of people in office of responsibility,
Thank you, Deputy
i.e. in relation to the central
bank? I call on the Taoiseach.
You may be absolutely assured that the Government will act in the interests of the Irish people, and will act in particular in this case in the interests of those Irish people who have borrowings from banks and to whom now the banks are saying that they're not going to pass on the reduction in the interest rate. We have made that position very clear to the banks. You can communicate. You don't necessarily have to pull on a balaclava to communicate with the banks, Deputy. And we have made it very clear. We have made it very clear.
Sorry, Deputy. No, Deputy. No, sorry.
Yeah. Made it very clear.
I communicated with them on a daily basis for 12 sad years of my life.
I don't know why you.
Please, done the time.
We have made it very clear.
Order. Stop. Deputies, please. Please, deputies. Taoiseach to finish.
We've made the Government's position very clear to the banks. I say it again. I hope that the banks will reconsider the position that they stated to us yesterday. They know, and we know, and everybody knows, that the reason that the ECB reduced the interest rate is so that it will be passed on to the customer and not pocketed by the banks. We are considering whether we will legislate in this area. I think you will agree that it is prudent that we take the advice of the independent financial regulator. It would be quite imprudent. It would be quite imprudent to do. We don't have it, and you've said this a couple of times. We don't have it. We have asked, and the Taoiseach contacted after the banks told us yesterday that they weren't going to pass on, or they didn't intend to pass on, the interest rate reduction. Immediately following that, the Taoiseach made contact with the financial regulator, spoke with them on the telephone, and asked him for his assessment of the situation. Explained to him, told him what happened. When we get the assessment, we will then have the considered position of the financial regulator. But be assured, the Government is acting on this and will act on it.
Thank you, Taoiseach. I call on Deputy Joe Higgins. Deputy has 2 minutes.
Let's face it, subjected to humiliation by the banks, and the response is the Taoiseach to make a telephone call to another banker to see what he should do. But it's another humiliation that I wish to call to your attention this morning. Taoiseach, on Friday, a foreign state, Israel, snatches and jails 14 Irish citizens taken from international waters, bringing humanitarian aid to Gaza. And you, as Foreign Minister, has not uttered a single word of protest in public in response to this outrage. This morning, by agreement with the Irish Embassy in Tel Aviv, 7 of those citizens were to be put on a British Airways flight. They were brought to the airport, they were driven around, they were then prevented by Israeli security forces from boarding their plane, and they were brought back to prison, where they are now incommunicado. For 6 days now, citizens of this state, including an MEP, councillors and every citizen of equal merit, have been in an Israeli jail. They've been subjected to continuous harassment, strip searches, disorientation techniques and humiliation. Now, the staff at the Irish Embassy have worked hard. They've worked hard. They've done their job. But you have not. As the Foreign Minister of this state, you have not acted acted, as you should, in internationally calling and condemning this action.
Thank you, Deputy.
And demanding the immediate release. Now, can I ask you, as soon as you are finished in this chamber, can I ask you to summon the Israeli ambassador, to give the Israeli ambassador 1 hour to tell you the details of the release and the safe sending home of our citizens? And if he doesn't, then expel him.
Thank you, Deputy.
At least make it clear to the world that what Israel does in continuing to imprison the people of Gaza and in acting in this illegal, high-handed, like pirates, that we in this country, the people of this country and the people internationally will not stand for it.
Deputy, over time now. On Taoiseach. Order, please.
First of all, immediately following the arrest of the 14 Irish people on the MV Saoirse, I acted and arranged to have officers of the Irish Embassy meet with them when their boat was brought ashore in Ashdod. They have been visited every single day of their detention. They did have the opportunity of being deported on Saturday, provided they signed a waiver against against appealing the deportation order. They declined to do so. I understand fully why they declined to do so, and I respect their right not to do so. And every single day, the Irish Embassy and the officials in Tel Aviv have worked with the 14 Irish people, and we have made it very clear, both directly to the Israeli Embassy here in Dublin and to the Foreign Ministry in Tel Aviv, that we wish to have the 14 people released as quickly as possible. Now, Deputy Higgins, you asked me to meet with the Israeli ambassador. I've already done that. I met with the Israeli ambassador yesterday, and I conveyed to him my dissatisfaction at the length of time that it is taking to have the 14 people returned to this country. My understanding is that the appeal, you know a bit about hijacking on the high seas.
Stop, Deputy, please. Stop. Order, please. Taoiseach. Order, please. On Taoiseach.
Yeah. I have already conveyed to the Israeli ambassador my views in relation to their arrest, my views in relation to the length of time that it is taking to have them returned. Yesterday he informed me that the intention was that 7 of the 14 would be on a flight this morning, and that the other 7 would be on a flight tomorrow morning. I understand that when the 7 who were to be on the flight this morning turned up at the airport, the airline was unwilling to board all 7. That's the information that I have been given, and I've asked officials in our embassy to check that out. And meanwhile, as we speak, our embassy in Israel is working to secure alternative flight arrangements for those 7 and to ensure that all 14 are back in this country as quickly as possible.
Thank you. 1 minute for a supplementary, Deputy Higgins.
Taoiseach, I reiterate, the staff, public sector workers in the embassy are doing their job. But you have not done your job. Now, you give the impression that our 14 citizens could have been out of there in a matter of hours if they had signed an innocuous document. What they were called upon to sign, Taoiseach, was that they had illegally entered Israel. They couldn't sign that because it would be a lie. It would be a lie. It would be a lie. They were taken from international waters. Do I have to reiterate it again? And lest we forget, they were coming to the assistance of the people of Gaza, incarcerated in the biggest open-air prison in the world, with the most disgusting, humiliating conditions of impoverishment, humiliation, malnutrition of children, and so on. While the European Union looks the other way, incidentally, most of the time.
Over time, please conclude.
I will conclude. Taoiseach, the least you could do is to stand up for what you said over the last 30 years you stood for, the rights of the Palestinian people, the rights of the Palestinian people, the rights of the Palestinian people, instead of defending the indefensible. Taoiseach, through the chair, you said, Taoiseach,
Order. Please. I want order, please, for the Speaker. Deputy Keaveney, could you some order, please?
It's not funny, comrades.
Taoiseach.
Deputy Higgins. Please, look it. Please conclude, Deputy.
Taoiseach, you said you met the Israeli ambassador yesterday. Well, will you call him in this morning to ask why the State of Israel saw fit to humiliate you and the Irish government by their treatment this morning of our citizens? The idea that British Airways said we will refuse to take 7 Irish citizens on board is utterly derisory.
Thank you, Deputy.
I am demanding that you call in this ambassador
we've
today.
said that, Deputy. You said that,
we want the truth of the situation.
Deputy.
More importantly, we want our citizens back here.
Deputy Higgins.
And we want an international statement.
Deputy Higgins, please. Thank you. Taoiseach, to reply. 1 minute to reply.
Deputy Higgins is so preoccupied with using every opportunity and excuse to have a cut at this government that he ignores the facts. Fact one, Deputy Higgins. Fact one. Every single day since those 14 people were arrested, I have been working in their interests to get them out of prison and to get them returned here directly, and that has involved me working directly and through our officials. Secondly, you asked me to call in the Israeli ambassador. I'm way ahead of you on this, Deputy Higgins. I've already spoken to the Israeli ambassador.
Order.
And thirdly,
No, sir. Please, resume your seat, please. Deputy, resume your seat, Deputy. Come on, please.
Thirdly, Deputy Higgins has used...
Order, please. Order. Taoiseach to reply, please.
You'll hear it if you wanted to hear it.
Taoiseach.
You haven't... Hearing and seeing are not your fortes, Deputy Higgins. You've used the term humiliation. This government is not humiliated. This government has taken a proud, independent position in respect of the issue in Palestine. I heard no words of support from you, Deputy Higgins, when I stood at the United Nations and declared that this country would support Palestinian statehood of the United Nations. I heard no words of support. I heard no words of support from you, Deputy Higgins, when this country and this government decided to support and vote for Palestine's membership of UNESCO last week. This government has made very clear. This government has made very clear our views in relation to what is happening in Palestine and in Gaza. And I have worked and my officials have worked and are continuing to work every single day to have the 14 people released and returned home here as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Taoiseach.